Hey guys, Matt from Eastwood. We're here in my home garage, and today we're going to talk about a tool that you may have forgotten about in the bottom of your air tool drawer, or a tool that you may not know about and don't have. That is the Rockwood needle scaler. This is a very inexpensive tool that is very effective for rough removal of rust, grease, grime, all different things when you're trying to prep a part to paint or restore. Today I pulled two very good or bad examples to showcase how well this tool can remove rust and grime and different things. So the first thing I have here is a 1940s Lincoln backing plate that looks like it was under the ocean. This part was actually new old stock, and it sat in a damp building on the ground. A stack of these sat, and they got very, very rusty, and they have all kinds of flaky rust all over them. And while they look rough, after we do a quick removal with the needle scaler, we'll get them down to something that's not too bad that we could probably hit with fast etch and paint with rust encapsulator and be good to use. It's just all this moisture and flaky rust that's on it makes it look a lot worse than it is. So we're going to take that one down, quickly remove the rust. The other thing I have is a 1940s Ford transmission case. This is the other scenario where I really like using this tool. That is because it has all of this like caked on grease, gear oil, all kinds of stuff that's just stuck on this thing from nearly 100 years of use. This thing is very, very caked on, and it's going to be difficult to remove. But with the needle scaler, we can get in there, save ourselves like a bunch of cans of brake clean or pre with dissolving the grease and getting it all off. We can knock off the heavy caked on stuff and see what we have to work with underneath. So I'm going to get some safety gear on and show you guys how well this needle scaler works. Alright, so the business end of the needle scaler is right here. It's got all these little round solid rods that move around, and as you hit it here, they move kind of out and around and they vibrate, and by these bouncing around, what they're going to do is just kind of get in tight areas and knock the rust off. You can see really quick. This thing is pretty loud, so you definitely want some ear protection. I got some earplugs in, obviously safety glasses, all that stuff, because it's going to send things flying. But you're going to see we can knock off all this flaky rust pretty easily. Alright, you can see there I was basically it was real time where I was doing that, and you could see that it really quickly, this top half, I stopped right about here, I went a little lower on this section, it just knocked all that flaky heavy rust off and just left us with the bare metal here. Now there's a couple little spots right here that I didn't get in, we can just quickly hit. But the nice thing, as you can see, is with the needle scaler you can get in all these little nooks and crannies that are really hard to get. Even if you were media blasting, it's hard to get in these areas, and knock off that heavy flaky rust. So we could get in all these crevices, knocked all that flaky rust off, and we're left with something that's basically ready, that we could either blast it from here and take it further and make it perfectly fresh bare metal, or we could leave it at this point, clean it, put some rust encapsulator on it, and we're ready to go. So I'm going to spin this thing around. Obviously you want to have it bolted down to a bench, or if it's a free part like this, in a vise on the bench, something like that, clamped down so it doesn't get away from you, because the tool does have some force to it, and if you don't have it bolted down or clamped down, it's going to go flying across the shop floor. So I'm going to spin this around and finish up the other half of this, and we can move on to our trans case. All right, so there we go. That's cleaned up pretty good. All the major rust, flaky rust is off of it. We could spray it down with some Fast Etch or some Pre to get all the dust off, and we'd be down to pretty close to fresh, clean metal. So I'm going to set this aside, and then we're going to move over to the transmission case over there and see how this thing does on some grease and grime on that trans case. Alright, so the needle scaler made really quick work of knocking off the grease and the rust off of these two parts. Now the needle scaler worked amazing on this backing plate. It had this huge flaky, thick rust on it that would have been very difficult to remove, especially because of all the tight crevices in the backing plate. And I went on both the back and front side and got it knocked out really, really quick. And that thing is darn near ready to be rust encapsulated and sealed up. Now the transmission took a little bit more time. We had areas where it was close to up to ½ an inch thick of grease and grime that were caked in all these little crevices and corners and around bolts and plugs on the transmission, but it came out really, really good. Probably what the transmission needs at this point is just to use some Pre and a wire brush just to knock any of the residual grease or grime that's left on here, and both these items are pretty much ready to prime, paint, seal up however we choose. Now you can see we made a giant mess. I swept up all my bench and on the floor around it. This shoots stuff all over the place because it is very forceful. It's a very strong tool, and it just shoots some of the rust and grime off all over the place. So I swept it all up. We probably have over a pound or more of rust and dirt and grime that we knocked off of these two pieces, and it's pretty incredible how much flies off of this when you're using that tool and how quickly it works. So now that I have both these items all cleaned up, I can, like I mentioned, just wipe them down with some Pre, clean them up, and paint them, prime them, and they're ready to go on a car for a future build. If you want to learn more about the Rockwood needle scaler, you can click the link down below, or you can visit Eastwood.com to get all the tools you need to do the job right. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.